Hey, hey, I think I'm live. Again, late to the party. I'm sorry. I've been really struggling again with my Ecamm Live setup because my screens froze. This is actually also the reason why I decided to delete my stream from yesterday because it was just trash. So, whoever's here, glad you are here. I tried to do a better job than yesterday if you actually watched. Let me just bring up my chat window so I can actually see if anyone actually decides to reach out to me during the live stream. I said this yesterday, so whoever was there yesterday, I think no one, just yellow probably. I might repeat some of the stuff that I said. Let me just give me a second to bring up the live stream here really quick. That's yep. All right. Cool. So no one here. Perfectly fine as it is midday in Germany, but I need to, kind of get this out because I need to work on it anyways. And but before we actually jump to the newer thing that I wanted to try with GitHub submodules, I already touched on that once, is to actually maybe kick things off with something not directly code related. And I thought it is a good idea for at least two reasons. First reason is I actually want to start creating my own agents for things that I do privately, like more like personal in my personal life, and also with regards to leveraging or helping get my business off the ground, which is called Chaos Maps. So there are lots of opportunities to employ or to use agents, right? So that's what I want to start off with today. Agents, obviously, in quotes. I mean, choose your definition of what an agent is. If you want to call it assistant, bot, whatever. It has AI inside. It does some non-deterministic stuff. Is it fully autonomous? No. Um, Can it use tools? Yes. Is it perfect in remembering everything and you can delegate, has it memory and learns? Certainly not. Not yet. Not with this manifestation of agent, at least. Nevertheless, since that's the term that's currently used, I call them agents. So you see some workflow here. I will talk about what this is in a second. So this is the first thing we'll cover. And then I will actually move to what I just already briefly talked about, Git submodules. There's actually let me actually go there to my own channel. There's a previous live stream that I did. Let's make this a bit bigger. A couple of like 6 weeks ago or so. Something like that. And this talks about, or this shows a basic toy example setup of Git submodules. I'll just put that here for reference. Speaking of this Miro board that I'm on, you actually, when I zoom out, and this is actually all the stuff that I covered so far, it's pretty wild, but I like to have references and I like to have, express my thoughts in a somewhat visual manner to actually form a picture or an image in the literal sense. And that's that. You have access to that by always you'll find the link in, for example, if we go to the visual manner to and actually form and scroll down to the what is it called? The video description. I think that's what it's called. You always find the link here somewhere, Miro board, right? And then I'm not sure, since I've been a Miro user back from when it was still called real-time boards, I think you kind of need a login. It's not as I think it's not just a published board, but yeah, decide for yourself if you want to look at it or not. Yeah, and that's that. So you can always also have a look at this other live stream, but obviously we will touch upon it today as well, because it's a building block to moving one step further, one tiny baby step further, towards the thing I keep referring to anti-fragile code. That's also in quotation mark, by the way. Hi, Jelle. Great if you can stay longer, stay longer. Right, anti-fragile code, meaning code that is as adaptable as possible, or as non-brittle as possible, as resilient as possible, however you want to frame this. It is inspired by a book that is called Antifragile. So this is kind of like my North Star principle. The journey becomes the destination. No, the journey becomes the destination. That's it. So I'm aware that this is something that I might never reach, but I think I can do better, writing better code we can write better code than what we are doing today. And it is somewhat tied to MCP servers as well, which we probably don't want to or will not touch upon because it will probably be too much time-wise. I'm aiming at 2 hours, basically, and we might not cover this, right? So, oh yeah, actually, this mirror board or the frame here actually came about in my first failed attempt yesterday evening. So maybe in the thumbnail for today's live stream, I put down vibe coding and I crossed it off and called it tribe coding. Just really briefly, this obviously is just me making up new words, right? That's what it comes down to. But there is something to it why I chose to not call it vibe coding, because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but I feel like that vibe coding, which is the term that has been invented by one of the OGs in the entire deep learning / Gen AI space, Andrej Karpathy, really awesome dude, because he also takes a lot of time in explaining the complex concepts behind all of this in somewhat understandable terms. And he's a really good educator, or really good didact. That sounds really weird in English. So he's really good at explaining things. Let's put it like that. And he has put out this famous blog post in February where he was the one that coined the term vibe coding, right? And I highlighted the stuff where I kind of say, I see I see where you're coming from. I see what you mean, but I would say I vibe code, but I have some like additions to where he kind of deliberately takes the shortcut. And what I mean by that is, for example, he basically goes on to explain that when you vibe code, you forget that the code actually exists. You just express your thoughts, and then the AI just writes the code. You don't actually care about the code. That's the first thing where I would object and say, I leverage this somewhat successfully in my, personal but also work-related projects, code-wise. And I do care about my code. I don't want to throw it away afterwards. And I do care when things break. I don't want this to happen, and so on. The second thing is, he says, I accept all, which is, telling the AI, sure, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead. You know best, right? And I accept all always, and I don't read the diffs anymore. So diffs are the code changes. And here I'd also say I often use accept all, and I often choose not to read the diffs, but I don't fully take a passenger seat role in my coding endeavors, because I do care again. And I think I've gotten quite good at understanding when the model is actually starting to trip, or when I need to pay closer attention, and thus need to look at the diffs, for example, or would choose to not accept all, but to actually say, I think think you're tripping here, or I think wouldn't it be a better idea to go left, and then the AI basically often comes back with saying, "Hey, carbon meat bag, this was actually a good idea. Let's do it this way," or we would go back and forth. But the point being, the point that I want to make is, I do care. I'm invested, right, with my like limited brain that I have. And next thing, getting a call here. Sorry about that. The next thing is, it's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects. Totally agree, but I think it can also be good, not just okay, good, and potentially even superb for like actual projects that, where you want to develop an app for possibly a client of yours, or some app that actually needs to be um, not just a toy thing that you might throw away. That's basically what where I kind of take a different, not a different, but where I would extend the vibe coding as vibe coding concept, as Andre Kapathy talked about it. And why did I come up with the name tribe coding? I don't know, just because I wanted a cool name that is not vibe coding. And that's basically the reason, right? I want to be the person that says, I called this tribe coding like 6 months ago, when it eventually catches on and everyone will call it tribe coding. This is obviously tongue in cheek. It's not about words. It's just humor, right? It's just fun. But maybe why did I choose tribe coding? I kind of last week I kind of felt like a chief of my tribe of AI coding agents for the very first time. And this is basically due to me having tried out Gemini 2.5 for the first time. Before, let's actually voice type this. Before, it was only Claude 3.5 Sonnet. Wow, that came out beautifully. Which is a model from Anthropic. It's really good at coding. They've been upgrading it to 3.7 lately, a couple of weeks ago. And so I was basically only coding with this particular model, which feels like, or felt like, having one coworker or one colleague, or whatever you want to call him, or it. And Gemini 2.5 came out also about 1.5, 2 weeks ago, I think, from Google. And it was the first time that I sometimes chose between the two of them. And for the first time ever, it kind of felt like having not just one, but two colleagues or coworkers. And this is the first reason why I say this is like, I feel like I'm the chief of my tribe. And the second thing is basically what I touched upon earlier, to say, hey, I do care about my code. So I do want to combine, my limited brain of this carbon meat bag with AI-based coding, or however you want to call that. And I do want to, do my best to find a sweet spot between my own coding experience and expertise and what AI can bring to the table. And I think this is this it's not a either or, it's a tribe, it's a together thing. And I want to find the right way to do this together thing, basically, to make this happen in a way that my code doesn't suck, but that I also leverage the productivity gains that AI brings to the table, right? That's basically what I want to do. And I feel like I'm actually quite successful in that, for my personal and business life, right? I'm not saying this is like the holy grail and everyone should do it like that, but it works for me. And it always comes down to, I need to be engaged, right? And there's this sweet spot of what does engaged mean. You don't need to hyper focus on, the code all the time, but you need to focus and be really there, bring your A game some of the time. And then in other times it's more vibe coding. And in those focus times, it's, hey, I need to be in charge. I'm the chief. Again, that's why I came up with the term tribe coding. Let's see if it catches on. Would be cool, actually. but I don't think so. And it's fine. Again, it's just names. It's just a bullshit bingo, marketing bullshit bingo wording game. Right. With that out of the way, I will probably nevertheless call it tribe coding from here on out. So get used to it. Let's actually jump into something I want to test out. I actually did test it out yesterday, but I spent lots of time getting back into the details of n8n, which is a tool or is the tool that we'll be using. And I got the idea from to kind of go deeper on n8n, which is a actually, do I have something here to? Yeah, I do. Let's bring it over. It's in German, but I'll translate it afterwards. Maybe make this a bit smaller. What I want to get at, usually I am in coding land, right? So what this means is everything I do usually evolves around Python. So there's always Python code involved, and then there's tooling around, and there's tech stack components. That's what we call that. And the ones that I really that I like to use and know quite well and like are basically put down here. I don't use all of them all the time, just depending on what the situation calls for. But the main point here is this is all like code centric. You just need to know how to code or how to prompt and vibe code with a coding assistant. That's kind of like the one end of the spectrum. And obviously there are programming languages that are even, some would say, even better or faster or whatever than Python. Totally not against this, but it's code, right? And on the other side, there's point and click stuff, right? On the other side of the spectrum, meaning you take your mouse and you click on something and then something happens. For example, Tableau or Power BI would be examples that I would call, you can have a web app that's programmed or coded in Python and that does exactly what you want. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have something like Tableau, which is you need to be able to you need to basically configure those apps or dashboard solutions with your mouse, and you're dragging, you're not coding all that much. And somewhere in the middle are things that are platforms or tools that are referred to as no code or low code tools. And n8n is one of those. There are others like make.com or Zapier. You might have Zapier has been kind of like the poster child for a while. And then make.com and n8n basically, I think, overtook it in some regards at least. And there's stuff that's even more tailored to big business. Flowable, for example, is one of those. And the thing is, those tools are usually node or process or workflow oriented. So I think even though you don't really know what's going on, you kind of catch the drift quite easily when you are, especially when you are either a programmer or a business person, because business persons are all about workflows, right? What's the process? What is it? SNOP, standard operating procedure, whatever. Let's actually look that up. SNOP. That bothers me. No. Then it's standard. God, I cannot do anything without AI anymore. Sorry. What's the term used? SNOP as in standard operating procedures? I think I got the acronym wrong. Standard operating procedure, SOP. I don't know why I threw the and in there. Probably from supply and demand planning back in the days. So workflows, right? So the workflow starts probably or usually at the left. Here we get a user to fill out a form, and then a workflow is kicked into motion. And in this particular example, we create something in Google Workspace, and if it's a manager, a certain role is created in Jira, which is a tool. If it's not a manager, it's just a regular member, and it's also the credentials or the users also created in Slack. Now, this has no AI inside yet, right? It's not an agent. But if you scroll a little bit down, further down, sorry that it's a bit pixelated, it's actually coming from the website, which I just know or realized we can actually go to the website as well. Much better. And maybe let's bring this up here and a bit bigger. Make this a bit bigger. And here you basically see, okay, you can have AI agents or LLMs, basically, yeah, thanks, Jelle, SOP. You can actually bring AI in that handles whatever comes in from the left, decides something, does something with the content, and then decides to either, for example, call a certain tool. This is what you would see here. You basically can give your AI agents any tool that you can put into software, basically. Usually it's API calls. And this is just an example of, I don't even know what Microsoft Entra ID. I think this is probably related to user management in the Microsoft world. And then Jira software, you create a user there, right? And then once this is done with the tool call, you say, you don't need me anymore from here. There's no AI needed anymore. You just have a routing. Are you actually no, sorry, the manager or member that's not the example here. You basically say after that, there are other non-AI based integrations that I can leverage to say, hey, I add this user to a certain channel in Slack, which is a communication tool that I really like also, and you update the profile picture of that user, right? That's basically what n8n is in a nutshell. And obviously, you can probably think that those workflows can get as complex and as involved with circular revision circles, basically for retries or having human in the loop revisions or having lots of different stuff that basically happens. Or they can be really simple, right? It's just like like any process can be simple or involved. And I want to leverage this because I played around with this a little, and I really like n8n because it helps me to rapidly prototype some of the ideas that I'm having. And today I want to combine n8n with something that I've seen in the channel Marketing Against the Grain. And in particular, this video here. Let's see. We'll go to, if you are not familiar with Miro, by the way, if you click on stuff that kind of looks like something that is not just a picture, like this one, then there's usually this little button up here, which is source, right? Or has this arrow, sorry. And this leads you to whatever the hyperlink is posting to. And in this particular video, this um, this woman, Barbara Jovanovic, I think that's her name, actually did something quite cool. I really like this. And what she did is she took she was a head of content in some, I think, startup. And this is basically her team that was necessary for her to carry out her job. Even though she was head of content, she didn't do any content anymore. She was just managing people, and she didn't like that, or she came to not like that anymore. B, this is quite expensive of a team. You can see down here, this team cost the company $336,000 per year. And at some point she decided to go solo, and she basically managed to get a marketing agency up and running that just consists of her and her tribe of AI agents or AI tools, to be more precise. Excuse me. And what I really like about her approach and this video is that she actually tells you exactly how she does it, which tools she's using, and which prompts she's using, and you basically see the cost basically come down to, let's say, $2,500 dollars per year, which is quite a difference, obviously. And the second cool thing is, or I just said that she actually shared all of her prompts that seem to work for her quite well. And you can find the link in the video description. I actually downloaded it already. I just need to find it real quick. Give me just a second to look that up. It's a Google Sheets. And I just need to find out again in which Google Drive I actually put this down. And here we have it. Right. So basically, you see 20 prompt templates or prompts that she uses to get certain to actually manage to or carry out certain tasks that she needs to do regularly for her in her marketing agency. Social media, typo checks, rewrites of specific content in a different tone of voice, content repurposing. This is probably rewrite a form of rewrite as well. Add research evidence to kind of like make things a bit more deep, I guess, and not just talk about it, but actually provide some evidence with some research. Turn a research paper into a blog post, stuff like that, right? And yesterday, I actually did a test with this, but I might have chosen the wrong template for just testing things out because I was. We'll get to what I tried out, but let me just read through the transcript of transcript to blog post. This is actually what I wanted yesterday, and I kind of chose the wrong one because I chose one rewriting content, but actually had my example content was a transcript of a video. So, and what I want to do now is to combine the two things. Take the prompt and put that into an n8n workflow to kind of create the very first experiment or proof of concept. It's not a polished agent yet. With all the what is an agent anyways aside for now. So, and that's what I wanted to show you today, to have something for non-code related for change. Let me just see. I need to sign in. Already am signed in. And let's go to the marketing agent as we created it yesterday. But yeah, I don't know if we actually need to do it all again. Maybe that's a bit, this would be a bit redundant. We can have maybe, I can walk you through how to do that from scratch in another agent. For example, there could be a sales agent, there could be a back office agent that kind of scans invoices and does things with the invoices and so on. So I think I'd rather walk you through what I created already. I think this is a bit more less error prone and a bit more time efficient for now. Yeah, so let's just get started. So what I did basically yesterday is to come up with we started out with some test input, and I asked ChatGPT, actually I can bring that up once more. Let me find the right conversation. was it? Chat trigger node here. Weird naming, but that's the one. So I basically said, hey, let's see, where did I ask for that? Yeah, I asked for some demo content that I could throw at my agent, basically. And then I didn't like that. All of that JSON stuff, we'll talk about that in a second. I didn't like that. And at some point I said, hey, turn that into a, as if I was interviewed, right? Like a transcript of an interview. And this is basically what I then put into my, as a demo content in that format, in this JSON notation, into my n8n workflow that I just, sorry, we are already in the browser, that I just showed you. And what you see here is basically this, let's see, actually, is that the one? No, it's not. Interesting. I might have forgotten to save that yesterday. So that's actually quite good. We can copy it. So the first thing is you need to start somewhere in the process, right? And I decided to start off with not the actual trigger and that would bring the content into the workflow in a production setting, which might come from an email or from Slack or from Teams or whatever, but we'll just fix the content for now, the demo content. And now you see this is Janko, founder, blah, blah, blah. This is like completely made up, right? As you might have seen already, if you're not familiar with JSON at all, this might look really intimidating. It's not. It shouldn't be. It's I can understand that, but it's really not rocket science. You'll get used to it. What we basically see here, we have basically two drawers. In one drawer, there's my name, and the drawer is labeled with user. And the content of the drawer is Janko. Then there's a second drawer, has the label text on it, and has the content in the drawer, the entire transcript of my interview is actually stored. Oh yeah, muting the notification. That's a good point. Sorry about that. I'll do so. Actually have this muted or usually muted, but should be muted now. Sorry about that. Right. And that's basically it for starting things off, right? With some, and actually let me save this so I don't forget. You actually need to hit, what is that? On Mac, it's Command and Save to actually save stuff. It's not automatically saved like in other web apps. And then from this test input, we basically route the content to our AI agent. Maybe so you can see how this comes about. You actually click on this plus sign, and then in this particular case, you go to Advanced AI and AI agent. And then you basically, can I give a name here already? No, I don't think so. But we just created this thing, and you see it looks the same, pretty much the same, without anything down here as our actual agent that we already had down here, right? And so that's basically, you can see always, you see a plus sign when you can click on it, and then you can define what is the next node what should the next node in my workflow be. Right, so I'll delete this because we already have that. And this agent basically is this agent node here. There are different agent nodes or AI nodes to be more precise. This is an agent node. And you need to define a model, like an LLM, the large language model. You need to define memory, and you don't need to do that, I think, as much as you don't need to define tools. But in the website example, you saw that tools are basically, I think of them as skills. So what is your agent able to do? And we don't need that right now because we just need to work with the content itself, with the text, right? We don't need to call out to any other application or do something different. But obviously we need an LLM, and memory usually is a good idea to have that. So basically, when you click on the chat model, you basically are presented with this screen. This might look a bit intimidating as well, but it's pretty straightforward. You have some free credits that you can use for example, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, whatever, or you bring your own key. You need to obviously set this up once. If you want me to, I can show that in some video. But then once you have your key basically in your settings, you can use it, and then you can basically choose which model you want to use. And yesterday I had a bit of trouble finding or using O1, for example. And also my GPT stuff hasn't been saved either. I just realized. So let's look for, I don't want to use the mini model, sorry. But I think this should be the bigger one, the most recent one. I'm assuming you can see the naming of OpenAI stuff drives me crazy sometimes. And let's save that so it's not gone. Right. Simple memory, I will touch upon that on maybe another time. It's not really relevant for our purpose here. And if you double click on the actual agent node, you see the typical stuff. Let me zoom out here a little bit. The typical stuff, the two messages that you always basically need when working with a LLM. And this is, let me see if it's better to, I think this doesn't, it's better if I zoom in a little at least. So you need to make yourself familiar with the so-called user message and the so-called system message. The user message basically is what we will copy in here is our prompt template as Barbara basically provided it to us, or to, that she kind of shared with us. And the system message basically tells well, let's do one after the other. So this is the stuff that I would copy from her template. So I would use the transcript to blog post prompt, then go back to my agent and basically copy this in here. And unfortunately, I cannot drag this down. So it's kind of like limited to what you can actually see at the slice that you can see. But basically, we tell the AI or the model, hey, below you find some text, and this text is actually a transcript from a conversation with a founder. Your job is to do the following. So basically, what you need to remember is that the user message is the way to feed the actual content of what you want the AI to do in a particular step, right? Because you can always feed. So when you prompt or when you interact with ChatGPT, for example, in the ChatGPT in the user interface, then each of your prompts actually is a user prompt in the background. Maybe that's a good distinction. Here, we're not using any front end like ChatGPT, but we're using the back end, which is an API, right? And the API needs to be structured in a certain way. And the prompt that you would enter in a text field on chatgpt.com or whatever it's called these days, that's actually in the background. This would be given to the API behind the scenes as the so-called user message. And obviously, as you might think, we need to, or might have thought already, we need to bring the actual content from our transcript, our example content, into this prompt somehow. I will show you how we do that in a second. The second really important prompt is the so-called system message. And this was actually not provided by Barbara. So I basically, we need to do that again, because yesterday I actually chose a different prompt. So the system message is kind of off. Let's see. I will need to zoom out so I can get to make this bigger. So let's voice type this. Below, you'll find a user prompt, and I would like you to come up with the suitable system message for that. It's not a user prompt, but a user message. And then I usually go with this XML inspired notation of saying, hey, this is where the prompt starts. And then at the very bottom, I say, hey, I close this off to just tell the AI, hey, this is like there are clear boundaries here. And within those boundaries, I want you to, this belongs together. Do not lose track, because LLMs and context windows, sometimes they get lost or confused. And I had good results in keeping things tidy, or keeping things together by basically putting it in a box, if you will, for at least from the perspective of the LLM. And that's it, basically, right? We'll choose 4.0. It's not the most, well, it's actually use the best one that we currently have. We can't switch mid conversation because I already started the conversation. Doesn't matter. 4.0 should be fine with coming up. Should be able to handle coming up with a suitable system message. And you can also maybe already see that the system message is basically what the DNA of your agent should be. Like apart from what each interaction, what content you feed to it in each, iteration of your conversation, the system message tells the LLM, hey, you are a writer, or you are a research assistant or agent, or you are a Python expert. So you're focused on coding and stuff like that. And that's what you put down, define in the system message. Basically the role, the entire the skills, basically what it can do, what it can't do, what it shouldn't do. That's all usually part of the system message. And what we'll do is just to copy that. I'm not gonna even read through that for now. Obviously you should. And I can actually make this one, I can make bigger. So that's basically a system message. Obviously this needs to go. This is just from the chat workflow saved. So always remember that. And we're almost ready to go. Actually, you can also you can set the three things, which chat model you are using or LLM, what the memory should be or how the memory should be managed, and which tools from within this dialogue as well. And now the thing that's missing is, if we click on execute code, what we actually did here, let me zoom out or go out here, is I don't know if this is easy to spot, but there's like a green line now. So the test input has actually been delivered to our agent at this point. So that's why it shows up on the left. And now we just need to make sure we bring in this part into our prompt. And the way to do that in n8n is to make sure you are on this expression tab. And at some point at the very end, I think usually that's how she structured it. No, it's not. Right, let's find here. So here she basically, your job is to do the following with the transcript. No, sorry. Focus on blah, blah, blah. This is basically what we wanted to do. And then, okay, then we say, here's the actual transcript. And as I said, I like to describe it like this. Maybe let me zoom in here a little bit. Transcript. Like this. Now comes the cool part. Also a bit scary maybe, but you'll get around to it if you put down 2 curly brackets, you're entering the expressions, the expression dialog. And as you can see, there are obviously different stuff that you can do, but since we're only concerned now with grabbing content from the left-hand side of our, oh, actually, I see I cannot zoom in my, okay, then this might be a bit hard to read, but sorry about that. As I said, I needed to redo all of my Ecamm Live stuff. We just want to grab stuff from the left-hand side. And the way we do that is to put down $JSON. This is just basically telling, hey, I want to access the JSON to the left. And in this JSON document, there are 2 drawers, as I said before, text and user. And we need the text. And when we do that, you see that things turn green. And if we scroll down, which we unfortunately don't, yeah, we can. If we scroll down a little, you see that this is actually also rendered as a bit, they didn't do a really good job UX-wise for making it easy to look at. But here you can see transcript, and then this is basically substituted. This expression is substituted with the actual value, right? So this is the content that we feed in, and that's it, right? There's nothing more we need to do in this particular. Let me zoom out, which you don't even see. This is all we need to do in this node, and then we can actually test it. And obviously we get an error. Why do we get an error? Oh yeah, simple memory. This is something I stumbled. I think it had to do with this one here. Let's do that again. The left-hand side is gone, and I think I confused the nodes because I had 2 inputs coming into it. I forgot that I fixed that yesterday, so this should work. Yeah, this looks much better. So what we'll see now on the right-hand side, the AI just does its job, and it will put out its version of a blog post based on the transcript. Now you can say, it's, is it a good blog post or not? That's open for discussion. It has a lot to do with which model you're using, how you structure your prompts, and whatever. So I'm not didn't do any prompt engineering here. I just copied what seems to have worked for Barbara or does work for Barbara, and it's just about the example here, right? So you can always tweak it and make it better. And then the next step is that we actually want to feed whatever the blog post output from the model is. We want to sync this SINK, so land it in a destination. Basically, that's what sync means in our data engineering terms. And we want, in this particular case, we decided, hey, I want to have this end up in a Google Doc, Google document. And when we do that, then, okay, here's again a AI agent. Let's see. I thought we would get around this because yesterday late I actually struggled with Google Docs quite a bit. So the output, this is what we want to grab, right? To put as a content into our Google Doc. And let's see why we are failing with this. Let's see. Oh, there it was. Item. I think it needs to be like that. Yeah. So this is kind of like I cannot zoom in. At least my Ecamm Live doesn't show any changes in my screen, so it's a bit hard maybe for you to read. But it's a slightly different notation, and I actually put this down here in my Miro board, if you want to get information from the most recent node to the left in a workflow, then it's pretty easy. You would just type something like this, e.g., this would be what did we have? Text. I think this was text because this is the name of the key, basically the name of the drawer, if you will. And this one, the second one, is a bit more involved, but it's also not really rocket science. You just need to find the node name, which in our case is AI agent. I'll show you why this is the case because we gave it that name. And then it needs to be a bit like this is a bit, cumbersome, but it's just how it is. Dot item, dot JSON, and then you're basically at the same, have the same mechanism of accessing a certain key in that JSON document as before. So here it would also then be output because that's what the draw label of what the AI agent outputs is called like that. You can also obviously change that. Maybe think about AI agent and keep output and maybe text in mind. And then we do the reference here once more in n8n. So going back to where we referenced our content, we just took the content from the very last node to the left in our workflow, and thus we can, and it's has the label text. Thus we can we get away with using the simple notation $JSON.text, whereas in this node we actually need to reach back all the way to the node of the AI agent because there were a couple of there's another node involved. So it's not, it's not as simple as saying, hey, the node to the left, because there are two nodes to the left, basically, from this node's perspective. And so we just basically say, hey, I want the out, or I want to access something from this particular node, which we called AI agent. And you can obviously always rename your nodes however you want the name to be. I would recommend you sticking to a systematic naming, all lowercase, no white spaces, either hyphens or underscores for delimiting words and so on. But that's up to you, to your choice. And now when we hit the test step, we still get a problem. It's the error again, not found. Okay, probably we need to do the entire thing once more. Interesting. Always the demonstration effect. Requested entity was not found. Why aren't you found? So I tried to get around this, but it's actually, that's what happens, right? When you use those no-code tools in coding land, you would kind of define all of this in configuration files, or it's just code, and it's a bit easier to manage. Here in low-code, no-code tools, you need to click and then look at nodes and look at the output, and yeah, it's sometimes a bit cumbersome. Oh yeah, I think I know why this has actually been. I also didn't save that yesterday either, so this might be the reason. This drove me nuts yesterday. Okay, this one looks good. This one doesn't. But why aren't you? This looks actually good from what I can see. Let me quickly check the Google Drive. So I think the creation works. The problem is, why does the question is, why does the move to trash? Let's see. Just a sec. So let's maybe move this. Just need to check some stuff on my Google Drive because I don't want to expose everything. And this is the most recent suggested. Just a sec. Move. 6th of April. That can go as well. Obviously, this can be anything you want, right? It can be, doesn't need to be Google Drive, but it will be the same hassle in Microsoft land, whatever. You always need to configure your tools. And this is where we are currently at. Let's run this once more. This is the document, and then I can't seem to understand why requested entity was not found. Sure, we can ask the assistant here. It has basically ChatGPT on board, but this has not always been based on the input data you provide the correct expression. Okay, let's try. Maybe I shouldn't have been. No, it's not. It's both green. So it is what we need to do here. We need to find what is the ID of the Google Doc that we already created. And then we basically only need to insert text. And I just don't see why this would actually go wrong. We got the right Google Docs account linked, and everything looks good. But actually don't really know what's going on, to be honest. It's a different problem even than yesterday. Let's see. What else can we try? Try maybe for another 5 minutes, and if it doesn't work, then we postpone the last mile basically to another video. Let's try to actually have it all in sequence, basically. There's this nice button also to tidy up. So it kind of takes care of rearranging the workflow to make it, to tidy it up, basically. And now it worked. So this, it's kind of, that felt like okay, pull the plug or turn it off, turn it on again. Yeah, sometimes it's as easy as this. Yeah, I mean, you need to get used to fiddling around with stuff like that, and you cannot lose faith or hope, because then you're gone, you're done. You always need to think about, hey, what could be the reason, and what else could I try? What then happened is that we have this document created. This has been created on my Google Drive. And even though this doesn't render in Google Drive like manner, let me see if you can see that. Yeah, should be big enough. You can see that this is markdown notation, right? So this would render in some heading, for example, like this. I just literally put down the 3 pound signs, and then this is what, okay, let's do it differently. It's actually, we shouldn't have done that, or didn't need to do that. Pound, 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 and space, and then Google Drive would take care of rendering this. The same with those weird stuff, right? It's just plain text at this stage, but it can be interpreted, and then you would have a nicely formatted blog post as well. We're not gonna read through the actual thing, but I think what you can definitely see is that the AI agent, the LLM, took our transcript, like fake transcript of an interview that I never did, and turned it into a blog post. And you can basically do the same thing with any other content and use any other prompts that Barbara basically shared with us. And yeah, that's for that. So maybe zooming out again, going back to the workflow. There are obviously much more involved workflows that you can do, and you can basically, if you have a look at what you can put in as notes, there's pretty much nothing you can't do, because even for very special stuff, you can call APIs and have webhooks. So you can always make a HTTP request to some external API, whatever it is. If you have access to it, you can integrate it into your workflow, or you can have a so-called webhook that acts as it's listening to input that's coming from the outside. For example, if you want to, I don't know, do something for which there isn't a bridge yet between Microsoft Land, whatever you do, and your workflow, you can just basically have a middleman, an API that you define, and then Microsoft basically just needs to call that API, and that API would take care of calling the workflow, if you will, in really, really simplified terms, but it's actually not much harder than that, to be honest. So yeah, that's that. As I said, I'm experimenting with n8n workflows. One particular channel I really like that you, I think, should also, if you're interested in that. Let's see. Didn't I put this down yesterday? No, I forgot, obviously. No, I didn't. Here, it's Hank. I forgot. I keep forgetting his name. Let's see. Let's go there. What's his name? Nate Herc, not Hank. Nate Herc has awesome videos and content about the most like intricate. Look at that. That's a, I mean, that's a workflow. And you can also see that you apparently can highlight it and maybe have different nodes. So you can kind of basically build Lego with workflow steps, and also reuse it in other workflows and stuff like that. So it's really powerful in what you can do. I think I would rather use it for rapid prototyping and then always kind of switch back to Python land to actually flesh things out, because it just gives me more control. But yeah, that's up to you basically. So this is n8n in a nutshell, n8n agents. And then with that, let's move on to Git submodules. I did spend yesterday talking about why I like it, and I will actually get to that maybe, but I want to start out today with some code and some tribe coding, because yesterday I just had the feeling that I talked about what I want to do and actually didn't get around doing it. So we are in Cursor, and we, on the right hand side, we have our, let's make this bigger, our agent window or agent frame, basically. And we just starting off with a really, like a completely fresh package project or code project. You see why? How can you see that? Well, maybe let's go one step back. Let's open up Cursor. Come on, hit the right buttons, human. Okay, it comes up with this, but if you, sorry, let's do it that way. Actually, that's, how do I get to that screen? I try to make it as, to make it exactly how you would see it, but I think I can't because it defaults to opening the most recent folder. Doesn't matter. I think you managed to open cursor by now, hopefully. And there's nothing in it though. Nothing yet, right? So, and I will just start vibe coding. I'm not using my MCP server. So this is pure vibe coding or tribe coding, how I would call it. You can choose if you have the most recent version of Cursor. The interface actually changed quite a bit. So make sure you have, if you can, to have version 0. Let's actually make a screenshot of that. Put that on Miro 48.7. Let's put this into here. No, I need to copy the screenshot, not this. Sorry. Okay, so that's actually, let's see that I can see the chat. Let's do it in a different way. Let's want to see the chat, but not be blocked by it all the time. See, actually, we don't need that anymore. Oh, maybe we do. We need to be sure we saved stuff. Okay, so most recent cursor version, then you basically can choose between agent mode and ask mode. We go for the agent mode. You can choose which model you want to use. We'll start off with Claude 3.7 Sonnet. It's still my preferred model, even though Gemini 2.5 actually made quite some strides. It's quite cool. That being said, Claude 3.7 is more expensive regarding your requests on your credits. So choose whatever model you wanna work with depending on your budget. And what I actually am trying to do now is to tell the model what the onset is here of what I'm trying to do, and I try to write this down or voice this down basically. So just need to focus for a second. Let me think. So I want to have a parent Git repository where I bring in Git submodules, and the main thing or the important thing is that those submodules need to live inside the source directory. This has been a bit. Let me look. Git repository, parent Git repository that reflects a Python package, and the project layout should follow a source-based layout. You will see what this means in a second. I then would like, to bring in Git submodules. Below directory subs, directory source, package name, subs. Actually, this was a bit prematurely. You can always stop it and go back to it. I want to have a parent. We are using UV to initialize the project and to create a virtual environment. UV is a package manager. You might have heard Poetry, which I used before. I kind of try to switch to UV. It's not the most smooth. It's not the smoothest ride, but It's actually, yeah, I think it's better than poetry in a lot of regards. So it makes sense to switch for me. Virtual environment with Python 3.12. I then would like, obviously, to bring in Git submodules below directory, blah, 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 submodule name. Please make sure you initialize the project accordingly. And for everything you do regarding Git submodules, please have atomic scripts so I can completely understand how bringing in Git submodules actually works. Accordingly, this is like a duplication. And for everything you do regarding Git submodules, please have atomic scripts in directory scripts so I can completely understand how bringing in Git submodules actually works. I think that's it for now. Or maybe one thing we need to. I will try to put this initial prompt somewhere on Miro, so for you to copy. It's not the best prompt as you can see, but it will do. Make sure you configure the Pi project toml accordingly to use the source-based layout and to have the package be the top module. And maybe you can see why it's not just pure vibe coding. It's a bit more, I'm engaged. I already know where the pitfalls are. Make sure you configure the, has been completely messed up. Pi project toml is a special file if you want to turn your project into a full-blown Python project, or sorry, Python package. Accordingly, to use the source-based layout and to have the package be the top module. Right, and let's just run with that. Please be sure to always go step by step and ask for my confirmation before continuing with the next step. Ask for my confirmation before, yep. Let's go. So the first thing that probably should happen now is, and you can see the model thinking. Why? Because I enabled the thinking switch here. So it's a bit more costly, but it's also yields higher results, and especially when kicking things off or when I have like really intricate problems, I bring in the thinking because I think it helps. So interesting. This is actually not needed if we. So I go back. You can always go back in Cursor, but just clicking into your previous prompt. And please start by calling UV init. And then hitting enter would just restart from your prompt, right? So it's really easy to fix errors or to go again. And now we see the magic happening. UV init basically initializes the basic project structure. Next thing is we create a virtual environment, which is always recommended. We do it with Python version 3.12. That has just, the most recent one is 3.13, but I still haven't upgraded everything yet, and I had some issues with if I went with 3.13. Now we are tweaking this particular file here. Not we, but the AI, obviously. Not yet. Sorry. I modified the project structure to source-based layout, right? So what will happen now is that the AI is going to create those directories and subdirectories. That's will show up here on the left-hand side. So let's go. And you see that there's this structure there's a structure, and our actual package is going to be, the code is going to be in this directory, and there are subdirectories. And here we bring in Git submodules. Why we do that and what a Git submodule is, we'll get to that in a couple minutes, hopefully. So now let's create empty init files. Init files are important to make a certain directory a Python module that can be imported somewhere in your code. So we go ahead with this, and you can see there's an init file for the Antifragile. Let's make this even a bit bigger because I cannot zoom properly yet. For the Antifragile directory, and then there's also one for the subdirectories, the subs directories, where we'll bring in the submodules eventually. Let's move the content from main. This was the file that has been created by UV-init to a proper module inside the source layout. Yeah, perfect. So this is becoming the main file in the module Antifragile. So our main code module, if you will. Now we update the PyProject TOML. There's some stuff that always needs to happen. It's a bit involved. As you can see, we changed the Python version. We do some build system stuff. This is important if you want to build your package. As I said, I always want to set myself up for success. So my code is always at any time able to be a Python package that I can install somewhere else. And not all of this stuff is mandatory, but I think, for example, this isn't, I think. But this is in order to make things work how I want to make it work. And this is basically the main entry point of when you install the package and want to call certain functionality, right? And we'll get to that when we get there. Let's cross that bridge when we get there, I always say. Then we'll create some scripts, because now we're already in the phase of, or at the stage of bringing in submodules. This one is going to be deleted, the main file in the root directory. And now it checks the updated project structure. It's satisfied with itself, as you can see. Great. So now we go into the, oh, I actually didn't accept all of those files yet. I can actually accept all. Okay, so the script to remove init, script to init. Now we need to find, so let's do it like this. Please create 2 GitHub repositories. They are both public and they belong to organization Yanko WTF. Not quite, but I don't blame you. Please create 2 GitHub repos with the GitHub CLI. That's the command line interface. They're both public and belong to organization Yanko what the fuck. And please create 2 GitHub repos. First is Antifragile backend and Antifragile frontend. Now let's make it even more generic component. Yeah, and let's go. We should be calling the, or get the GitHub CLI commands. I'm logged in. This is the command we need to create the first one. Perfect. This one's for the second one. Perfect. And now we actually, let's see if can I actually do that from within here? Let's ask. I would like to have no, wait. That's one part I don't know how to do it differently yet than to actually jump to a different, to go into basically both of those, how do I say, to actually manage each of those just newly created Git repos or GitHub repos individually before bringing them in as submodules. I think this is something we need to do outside. So what happened now is that, I don't know if we can go there, but we can copy the URL. And if we bring that up in the browser, you see that under my handle, Janko, what the fuck, there is, under repositories, there is AF comp1 and comp2. And if I click on that, it's empty yet, right? There's nothing actually happening yet. And we need to bring it into on my computer, if you will, onto my file system. And the way to do that is we copy this right here, and we'll go into terminal. Let's see, cd code. Just a sec. So this is just a terminal. One of my favorite terminal IDs. It's called Hyper. And the cool thing is it has those sparks. It's getting even better if you hit the wow command. It's kind of like in rage mode. So everything is kind of shaking and confetti is flying. I like it. So what we need to do is we are in my code repository already. So I do git clone and then copy this thing that I just copied. Yeah, it's fine. There's nothing in it yet. And then we do the same thing with component 2. And then we basically cd, so we change the directory to go into, let's make that even bigger, to go into AF comp1. I don't know if that works, but let's try. We do a UV init. Yeah, this works. Perfect. And we go back, go on this into the second one. Also do a UV init. So this basically also initialized both of those. And before we can bring it into our other project as a code, as a submodule, and then I tell you what a submodule actually is, we need to have at least one commit. And that's the thing we need to do in this manner, right? That's why it's a bit cumbersome, but I hope it will make sense in a minute. We go into, we are here already, so we do a git status, and we see some of the stuff that UV init just did is untracked, so there are new files. So I go into git add, or go in with a git add and a commit, and say initial commit. Let's check our remote. It's pointing to our GitHub. That's perfect. Now we can just push view origin main. And we do the same thing with the other, AF comp. We were in the second one, so now we go into the first one. We do git status, same thing here, git add all, git commit, initial commit git push u origin main. Perfect. So then what I do is I actually copy this. So if I copy this and then refresh, and if we refresh both the GitHub situation or GitHub page for AFComp1, you see that it's an empty, not quite as empty repository anymore. It just has those initial files and folders that UV init basically is responsible for. And now I actually go back to Cursor and tell it I would like to bring those two Git repos into our current parent project as submodules. And then I go with first one is this one, second one is this one. And to a current parent project as GitHub submodules. Please make sure you modify all the scripts in the scripts subdirectory. Also make sure that each script starts with GitHub as a prefix, so I quickly can spot all GitHub related scripts. That should be fine. Okay, didn't wait. Let's actually stop it. Go back and say starts with I didn't pay close attention. Didn't I preach that I always pay close attention? No, I didn't actually. I said sometimes I do. And this has been one of the times where I actually didn't think I needed to pay closer attention, but it's not the model's fault. It's my fault. And yeah, well, no. Now I confused it. All GitHub related scripts. In case there are, let's actually do the following. We copy this. Let's stop it. We restore the checkpoint, so we go back to the point in time before we fired this prompt. This would delete the GitHub prefixed. It should at least. No, because I did it for the second time. Okay. Demonstration effect. Please make sure to get rid of all scripts that have GitHub with a capital G. Now it should know at least that we only need to keep one of those and the other one can go. Now I would delete those one by one. I mean, I could have done this obviously myself as well. Stuff is renamed. You can have the settings such that you don't need to acknowledge each of the commands. I never felt comfortable enough to try this out or to give the AI that much power over my code base, but you could. All right, now that's exactly. So what happens now, we ran the script that brings in the two subcomponents, basically, the two repositories that live completely outside of our current project into our current project. And that's the main magic of working with Git submodules. And I will explain it hopefully I have to keep an eye on the watch here, but I got like 25 minutes left. So this is probably enough. So you can see we have Why did we only bring in GitHub component 1? Where's the second one? Let's verify that the submodules were actually added. So let's see. Okay, it tells me that it has both. I'm not seeing both, but maybe I'm blind. I can only see the actual subfolder for af-comp-1. Where's the second one? Yeah, let's leave it like that. Should be fine. It's not spelled correctly. So now it checks for subs. It is there, apparently. Interesting. Looks like both submodules are actually present in source antifragile subs. Oh, now it's coming. Okay. And that's where I actually want to get at. And maybe we'll manage to let's let it finish here. Both submodules are correctly defined in Git submodules. Both directories are present in the file system. No, it's fine. Finish your thing. Yep. All right. Now, why is this cool? I will try to shortcut it a little because due to time constraints, I basically wrote it down here. Maybe this is a good time to go through it really briefly. Usually, pretty much any of your apps is typically you have an app X. So, for example, in our case, this is Antifragile, or however the name is, and it uses some component and another component. In this case, example, backend package and front end package or component. Let's make it actually component. Maybe those should be individual packages because you might need them in other apps as well, right? They're not just tied to your one particular app, but you want to reuse it in multiple locations, basically. What you would typically do is to each of them is a own Python project and an own Python package, to be more precise. You would build them and then deploy them, send them to some index or some repository. The most important one is PyPy. That's the thing that you would actually typically call when you do something like pip install whatever package name, right? Anyone that has programmed with Python before has definitely seen that at some point. And what you actually do then is to use PyPy. So you actually look for that particular package name in this index. It's kind of like a library with all the packages. And if you want to use your packages, obviously they need to be deployed somewhere in one of those libraries. There's also a local version that you can do, just create your own library, your local library with your packages. But that's the typical case. And then after that, you would then in your application, you would go import backend component and import from front end component. Component import render tabs, for example. Now, the thing is that this works, obviously. I mean, this is how like pretty much every app is built. But I kind of need a different workflow, or for me, a different workflow actually works better at the moment. I kind of like to bring in, I like composability, and I talked about this a couple of times. I will need to do probably deep dive on why composability is the great idea, in my opinion. It has to do with anti-fragile code and stuff like that. Component. Let's actually make this consistent here. and this one actually went out the window. I kind of like to bring in my actual components as subdirectories in my app project folder, but in a smart way. I don't want to copy actual things around because those components itself need to be version controlled. They are their own little thing. They are their own Lego brick. But I want to bring in Lego bricks to build cool stuff like the Millennium Falcon or whatever. And Git submodules is, I think, a pretty good way up until now. I mean, it will break down probably, or it will pose challenges at some point. But for now, I really like it because it gives me that the possibility, the best of both worlds, to have backend and front end component be individual Lego bricks that I can use. I can do whatever I want with them. They're not tied to my app, but I can bring them into my app when I want to and have that be really part of my app. That's the first benefit, composability. And the second benefit is comes back to tribe coding. Because of the fact that both of those components are actually living in a subdirectory of my application, however, whatever that is, right? It can be a small one, a big one, whatever. The fact that it is there, literally accessible, it means that it is accessible for my code agents, my tribe, to actually look at the code and reason about it and work with it. This would not be possible if those things actually were merely imported from, for example, PyPy, right? And maybe to show you what I mean by that is, let's actually go into, let's see, what's the easiest way to do that? Let's actually bring this over. We start a new conversation and we say, please make this submodule. Now I need to think about what the best use case is to actually show something. Please make this submodule a the main module of this submodule should realize the following. Create a SQLite database, offer basic CRUD functionality to populate, read and write and delete, update stuff in the database. Implement. Please use a source-based package layout and make sure you update the PyProject toml accordingly so it is a true module. So that the package code in source is package name is a true module. Make sure you update the accordingly. So the package code in source package name is a true model. Package name should be, this is kind of like where you always need to have a watch out for hyphens and underscores. There are no hyphens allowed as package name within a Python project, as far as I know. So this needs to be like this. And let's see. This is putting it to the test under time pressure a bit. So are we in the right subdirectory? Yeah, we are. Cool. Yeah, I have the feeling that I might not have gotten the cool benefit regarding building Lego and composability across yet, because it's a bit short on time. But I will keep iterating on this example here to get this across. I think it's a good idea, and maybe as sometimes my ideas aren't good. And maybe this, as I said, will break down at some point, but I think it's not the worst idea, to at least to say the least. And I might be able to show you at least two very important aspects in this regard. If the AI codes fast enough, the README, yeah, we don't actually really need that. But let's look at it's a source-based, yeah, cool. Then let's do the following. And maybe this is already the best example, hopefully. Well, maybe let's no, we put my need to put the money where my mouth is, basically. So what we did now is we basically have the package A, or the component AF comp1, the first component, deal with SQLite database management. So creating tables, putting stuff into the database, reading stuff from the database, updating stuff, deleting stuff. That's CRUD, CRUD. And in the second component, we define a Streamlit interface. And the Streamlit interface should implement the front end layer, the UI layer, for that CRUD logic and use the CRUD logic. No, it needs to know about the CRUD logic, otherwise it cannot, connect the dots. And that's exactly the magic, I think, of submodules, because now, and let me actually go back and copy the very first prompt here from my component one, but then move to a different conversation. We copy this thing and actually bring in. I just dragged the folder over here, and here we say the main module of this submodule should realize the following: implement a Streamlit app that acts as a UI for the other component. And now I can reference it, right? I can just drag this in here and tell the AI, hey, in order to know how the front end needs to interact with this other module, here's the actual code of this first module. And then that's basically it. I don't need to, that's the main thing. I also tell the AI, hey, make sure that this package actually is following a source-based. Yeah, this worked for the first one as well. So, and obviously this needs to be like this, and off we go. And most likely things will not work out in a couple of minutes when I test this, but I hope that this central point already got across. Again, the cool thing, while it does its thing, is that those two components, which in our case, let's actually make the example aligned to what I talk about in the live stream. So the app is called Antifragile. It right now doesn't really have anything that it does itself, basically, right? Maybe other stuff would come, but for now, let's take that out of the picture. But important is that we have one component, AF component 1, comp 1, and component 2. And the thing is that they are both, let's maybe do it like this, self-contained Python packages. Both of them. which means they're Lego bricks. You can do whatever and however you want to use them. They're not tied to just this anti-fragile thing. But at the same time, they are accessible for our coding agents. So this actually, the first one is, the implication is version controlled in own repo. GitHub repo. And this one is actual code is available in our parent project or app, which is Antifragile. Right, so those are the two benefits basically side by side again. And let's see, we just accept everything here, which I told you not to do. Well, that's not true, right? I said vibe coding, tribe coding has lots of vibe coding inside tribe coding. But yeah, I'll stress on the vibe coding the tribe coding maybe in another video. Right now I need to go fast and cut corners. At some point right now, actually, it should the AI needs to be able to needs to understand how this backend layer actually works. Otherwise, at least that's what I hope it's doing, because otherwise it couldn't come up with the actual front end layer, right? So here you can see from this component, it imports the database. And there's some import issues. That's actually something I haven't spent that much thought on. It's doable, and maybe that's the perfect continuation point for the next live stream or the next video. But let's see. Let's actually make successfully blah blah blah. And this package iterates blah 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 blah. All right, and now I go look at I'm getting import errors for AF comp. Interesting. I haven't thought about the hyphen versus underscore issue. Let's see, and maybe let's do it like this. I'm not sure if this already would make it unrunnable, basically. I'm getting import errors for that thing in the second one. So we're importing the first component in the second component. Can you double check and tell me what needs to be installed or how the Pi project tomls need to be configured to make importing work across the parent package and in the submodules. You can see that the linter, so the basically the checker, the judge of if everything is working, if everything is set up correctly, it's not the case here, right? We cannot do this. This will fail. So now I'm basically, and I haven't thought about this yet. So it's good that it happens. It's bad that it kind of, well, it's not bad that it happens in the live stream. It's just, I mean, I'm just putting the camera on what I actually want to do. So That's real life development here. To be fair, with strange ideas of leveraging Git submodules in that way. Okay, so let's see. Maybe we are in fact good to go after all. This would be perfect. I don't think it's going to work, but let's see. Test column name, column A. It's a text at the column. Wow, that looked too good to be true. Create the table. All columns must have names. I don't need the second one. All right. Create it in a thread. Let's see. Let's bring up the here. But it's already working. It's going in the right direction. I'm kind of impressed, to be honest. I would have thought that this will fall down. You can already see one component is just related or just concerned with coming up with the front end, and one package is or component is only there for dealing with the back end. And somewhere probably along the lines here, some SQLite database is actually created. As I said, as you have seen, this was like in we sprinted through the entire thing. So, but let's see. Maybe we are in fact managing to get this running. This would be a first, but I'm not counting on it, to be honest. Okay, the test is successful. Probably we have an in-memory database because I still don't see the actual SQLite. Run it, please. And make sure the SQLite DB is actually persisted to a file in the root directory. Now I'm eager to see what the root directory actually is. I'm assuming it's the one from the component 1 that defines the backend logic, but maybe it's the one that runs the Streamlit app. And maybe it's the one of the parent package. Let's see. As I said, this is also like a completely new workflow for me. I kind of did a toy example, but I never fleshed out a toy example to actually do something meaningful using database file users, blah, 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 Antifragile, database SQLite. So it was created in here. You can actually look at it. It doesn't have anything in it. And this would be fantastic if this works. Test column A is text. Column B is an integer. And let's go. And so it tells me everything went according to plan, but I don't see the thing here. So, but maybe let's see view table. So this something has been created. I don't know if it has been persisted yet. Insert data. Column A is hello world. And this is 23, Michael Jordan. Okay, it's not persisted to file, but I think it is view the data, view all of test, hello world, and 23. This is fantastic. Update data, select the table, enter ID, find record. Okay, the record has not been created, so update doesn't work yet. Let's see, probably then deleting also doesn't work yet. But man, this is impressive. This is like the perfect stop point as well. I think I'm onto something that works for my, oh, no, this is just a check for my workflow, right? I will flesh this out, but hopefully you could also already understand how this can be beneficial. And it comes down to this. and you just saw a working example that has been created in like 15 minutes or so with the entire setup, maybe half an hour. All right, guys and girls, I gotta run. I hope you had a good time. I hope you learned something, or I could bring across some of the stuff that I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Feel free to reach out and hope to catch you in the next one. Have a nice day. Bye.